Hey, we're live. Am I off? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can hear
I
you.
can hear you. Hello.
Hello. So hi everybody. Well, I think there might be a lag. There might be 0 viewers, but
I see
it
zero
will
as
tick
well.
up.
It is us right now, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, we got one.
Yeah, we got one viewer. Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to the first episode of this month in AWS Consumer Electronics. I'm Brian Tang. I'm a senior solutions architect. Been here for about 4.5 years. Hoping we're going to be able to talk a lot about how you can think about physical devices and how they bridge to the cloud. And then Krishi.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. I'm Krishi. I'm a solutions architect here at AWS. I've been here around 6 months, and I work with consumer electronic customers.
Yeah, and I'm Chris, also a solution architect. We're actually all on the same team and also support similar customers, and looking forward to today's session.
All right, so why are we here today? We wanted to talk about how AWS helps with consumer electronics or helps consumer electronics customers. And what we wanted to do was do something a bit more designy and think about designing a smart home from scratch. We're not going to finish everything today, but we wanted to get people's minds going about how you can bridge the gap between the physical world and the cloud and be able to do really cool stuff. So the flow of today's session, and we can put it up on the agenda if we can, is coming up with our requirements, our functional requirements. What is it going to do? Our technical requirements, and then cover like 3 different flows. And would love to hear thoughts from the audience as well of how you might get data from the devices to the cloud, how you might want to deliver updates. And then the third really cool part is controlling things from your smart home, from your mobile app. And then we want to share a lot of resources to get you started as well as we go on this journey together. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think we'll try to keep it as interactive as possible. So just feel free to use the chat if you have any questions.
All right. I don't have a very super legit setup, so I'm going to share my screen. Please don't cringe too hard. I'm going to put this up. All right. How is that? Super advanced, very advanced system design
That
UI. How does it make you feel? Oh wait, not only that, I have an agenda. So let's see. Let's do that. All right. So smart home requirements. Can you actually read that?
It's kind of small.
There we go.
But I'll just pop a question for the chat to answer as you get set up.
Okay, cool. Yeah, where are people joining from?
Where everyone's joining from.
Oh.
Well, I'm in New York, so hello.
Chris?
Yeah, I'm based in New Jersey, but I'm in the office today, so also in New York.
All right, and I'm based in Boston, so we're all East Coast. We're all on the same time zone. Kenya. Oh, awesome.
Sweet. Cupertino.
Cupertino, Bangalore. Welcome. It's very late.
Thank you.
Thanks for staying on so late. That's commitment.
Yeah, and I hope you learn a lot from this session because we want to be a little bit more hands-on and give you like a good mental model and examples of how we can bridge from the physical world to the cloud.
Is that Zimbabwe, ZA, or ZA?
ZA.
Are you Googling it? I mean, that's what I do most of the time.
So. South Africa, yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Wow. Okay, so we have a very global audience. So would really love to hear your thoughts as well. Let us know if you have any ideas. So, all right, let's jump in. So we're 5 minutes in. Let's think about what we would want in a smart home. And before we do, we'd go too far off the rails. I would want to go with like functional requirements. Like, what does our smart home, what should it do for us, right? I'll start with one. So maybe if you're familiar with what smart home technology does, you might just think, oh, well, I just can control a light or I can control a speaker. But maybe more importantly, you might want to create environments, right? You don't just want that like point-to-point experience, but you may want a living room to have a certain setup, and you might want to have scenes at certain times of the day. So that way you don't have to go switch the light, turn on the TV, and like set the temperature all individually. You just might want all of that as one seamless experience. So that's kind of what I want. I want to be able to create environments for my smart home. Any other ideas?
Do we want to get some ideas from the chat, or how do you want to do this?
Chat, if it's quiet for 10 seconds.
I mean, I'd want to have controls.
Wait, what do you mean by controls?
Like maybe that relates to environments, but
Yeah, that's fine.
you know, like for the door or like for like blinds or for air conditioning, you know.
Maybe for your fridge.
Yeah. Yeah, like rules-based controls, like based on time of day or schedule or something.
Rules-based controls. Okay, cool. Awesome. The other things I could think of that somebody mentioned in passing was like, okay, if your alarm goes off in the morning at the same time, heat up the shower. I think that would be really great. So you don't have to step into a cold shower unless you're, automation. Unless you're, what was it? You're trying to be like a stoic or something, which is very respectable, but I kind of like having warm showers.
Yeah, no, very true. Jonathan, can you elaborate on automation perhaps in the chat? Because that's a pretty big umbrella. I would want to know what I have.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Know what you have. Yeah, so you probably are going to have an ecosystem, multiple devices, and you may want to get like a status update from all these devices. So I think that's important to know, because if you're going to be controlling them, you kind of want to know some more details about them.
Yeah.
Monitoring devices consumption.
Tag along with that as well. Like for me, cost as well. I'm always a big advocate of trying to save on energy costs too. So if there's any way in which we can have some input back to save costs or have some automation there, I think that could be worthwhile, at least for me. So
I'm just throwing some of the comments up for you to be able to read easily, Brian.
Yeah, a web interface, maybe, or definitely. I think that's a great idea, because sometimes you can't just slap on the UX as an afterthought. You want people to enjoy using it. Room sensors, great. Let's use a verb, handle sensors. Okay, for automation. There we go. Awesome. All right, cool. I'm gonna throw out a couple other ones in there because I'm kind of loading this scenario up. Maybe we want to be able to deliver updates, because devices over time may get stale, or if we're gonna be talking about a broker or the concept of a broker, we want to make sure that that's up to date with the latest patches or performance improvements that we're able to ship. Yeah, and I think that's great. So the other thing we want to know is technical requirements. Oh, one other comment. And Donnie, you need to account for authorized versus unauthorized users. Welcome to HCI and cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that is very important. That is a very important point. But it is a very deep topic. I think we'll only just brush on it during this discussion. we'll talk about encryption in transit, but I don't want to dive too deep into the cybersecurity bucket because that can go extremely deep. And I do want to focus more on capturing the data and having a functional application. But great call out. Okay, well, we can throw that in there. Like, it needs security. Great. Also, if we're talking about technical requirements, a couple of things about what the system can handle. That's usually, what can the system handle? We have to think about the amount of traffic that we're going to be handling. So from the perspective of like a consumer, like me or you, I don't really care because I'm probably only going to have a couple dozen devices max in my house, and they're all sending messages that are about, few bytes in size. So in terms of like scalability, that's probably less of a consideration to a customer, but I do care about the performance and the latency. So when I actually hit an action, I want to be able to get that feedback as quickly as possible, or like I'm not going to perceive that kind of delay. Boom, leg shot. Great name. Is this a teaching stream? Is it a teaching stream? What do you think?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And congrats on being a SWE in school right now. Living it up. But yeah, I think we're hoping that this turns into, being able to leverage and learn more about sort of consumer electronics across AWS, since we all work with consumer electronics customers. So we always want to impart our knowledge to the stream here. So yeah. But going back to Brian's point, you're saying about performance, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, performance. So latency is a consideration. And then the other thing to think
The
about.
size of the data.
Yes, the size of the data.
Like audio, picture, video are all going to be different byte sizes. So
yeah, so that's the other thing about system design is sometimes you want to scope things because we get really excited about different ideas. We're very ambitious, but we also want to be efficient. So we're going to be ambitious and leave video out for now because that is its own beast as well. So like definitely want to talk about security, definitely want to talk about video, but for today, let's focus on how does device info get to the cloud and how might we control those things from the cloud.
So static device information.
Yes.
Okay.
Or maybe like timestamp data, right? So telemetry information from the devices, like status updates. Also probably should have a timestamp attached to it because we want to be able to process those down the line. All right. And I was talking about like the consumer standpoint, but also if I'm the service provider, we're going to pretend we're a new startup and we're building a platform, and we imagine that we're going to have an ecosystem, which is also open to devices that are out in the field. So I've worked with smart home customers in the past. And it's not always the case that you're going to have perfectly, what would you say, like standard devices that all communicate the same way. So in some cases, we may have to handle different types of communication with different protocols. Handle our first-party devices and third-party devices, potentially. And not only the size of the data, the other aspect is how much data is coming in, like the frequency and the amount of data could be a lot, right? So I'm a startup. I'm really ambitious. I'm targeting 1 million households at the max, each one having about like 15 to 20 devices per house. And they're probably on average sending, it depends on the device, right? So like a light bulb might send status updates every minute. You might send status updates more frequently than that. but you can use those types of things to kind of get the size of the amount and the frequency at which data is coming in. And that will kind of help us when we're thinking about what services are we going to be able to use to do certain things. Matter and thread enabled. Potentially, that is very interesting. That is very interesting that you brought that up. Matter, thread. I think a very common protocol out there right now is Zigbee, and handling those. We'll come up with a hypothesis of how we want to handle all of those, but it's good that you mentioned that. Atul. I use Alexa extensively for automating my home. How can I get access to my adult children when they are visiting us for a few days? I mean, Krishy, you have an Alexa.
I do. I don't know how to give access, unfortunately, but if I find out the answer, I will get back to you, Atul.
I am aware that there are a lot of ways that you can program like additional skills for smart home, like brokers, let's call them. But specifically for Alexa, I don't have an answer for that. And
Yeah.
Donnie, yes. Let's see. Considering this is home automation, are you ensuring that they are using Matter or anything and having interoperability conflicts? Yes. So I think we're going to talk about the concept of brokers and what brokers can do and how we might approach handling different protocols like Matter, for instance, and being able to convert it all to a more standard, understandable protocol, at least from our approach, using something like MQTT, and being able to handle those and process them downstream. And Jonathan, building out a smart home right now. Cool. This is all fresh in your mind. Great. Yeah, maybe you can share with us what you've built out so far, and we can throw it in the design as well. Cool. Time on the do. Regarding AWS Racer, I might need some help from the admins on that one for Ramanan.
We can table that. It's out of scope for this presentation, but I'm sure.
Okay. Yeah, continuing down the line of technical requirements, I think there's a couple other things that we have to think about is, after we've ingested the data, what are we going to do with it? And there could be like two paths, right? You can have handle batch data, and handle streaming data. And the reason we might want to do like streaming data handling is if we want something that's more reactive, or like more snappy based on information that we see. So for example, if you are, what's a good example? If you want some
data, but yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, camera data, right? But I guess we wanted to keep that for a future episode, so we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I think that one's really complicated. I think you're definitely right about streaming data being related to like video streaming as well. And like if you wanted to say capture all the video as it's coming in and then be able to run some sort of ML process on it to find like, oh, this is an anomaly, or like that's a bear, that's a deer in your backyard. That's good to know. Although Krishy is the ML specialist, but I do scoping again. We're going to keep the ML part for a subsequent episode because there's a lot we want to talk about there in terms of like the value that we provide for customers.
Okay, so I think
Ez Eldon. You guys reminded me that I have some hardware in my drawer. Got to start making my home smart. Yeah, do it. You can pull a Tony Stark and right, batch data, streaming data. Two different ways of handling data that you should be aware of. Because even though everybody wants all the data right now, as fast as possible, there's always a cost component, right? Because the faster you process data, the more computing power you need. The more computing power you need, the more power you need, the more it costs. So you gotta weigh those things. All right. I think we have a good set of requirements. How's the agenda looking? Ooh. I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller. All right. We can start drawing. So, we're solutions architects. We don't always just jump straight for the services. I think first we try to identify what we're trying to do and why it's valuable. I think we've done it. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I know some of you are actively building smart homes. So what have we missed if we haven't covered something?
Also, Christian, you can also say no.
No, nothing. Nothing. I think everything's amazing.
Oh. All right. I'm going to be pulling some icons from off screen. So don't worry about that. So I think the first thing to do would be like defining what's in our smart home. Whoops, that's not what I want. I think one of the buckets we can have is like entertainment is a great bucket. Feeding your pets, also great. Boom leg shot coming in again with the smart home. Automated pet feed, I did. I liked having the ability to sense when the hopper was empty with push notifications. Yeah. What is your product? What is the product you're building? Just all around automation? No. I think we want to have things like push notifications. We should have put it in the functional requirements. Because that's also part of the great UI, I would say. That's a great call out. So it's not all just about pure automation. You also need to have actionable insights and know what to do. Like you don't want your pet to go hungry, right? Right?
I mean, hopefully not.
All right. So we have entertainment. We talked about, let's say, functional control is the category. And then potentially, let's see, like HVAC is good because we talked about we want to do energy savings. We want to collect information about that, and then we potentially want to control it. If you're far away from home, maybe you want to be able to turn off the heat when you're not there. Save some money. And yeah, I just want some ideas about what could be in each of these buckets. I know I kind of put a box around it, but feel free to jump outside the box as well. I'm going to start with one. Smart bulbs.
Oh, boom leg shot said for HVAC, a good one would be water sensing by the water heater to alert a leak.
Okay. Let's say
think of that. That's a good one.
Water heat sensor. All right. If we're treating like this is class, if you guys don't say anything, I'm going to steal all the easy answers.
I'll take one, Brian. A TV and speaker for entertainment. So
TV and speakers. Okay, good one. TV, speaker. Okay. So we're already setting the mood for, Netflix night.
Wait, what?
Right,
Oh,
because it's,
of the entertainment.
yeah. Sorry, thermostat too off? No, I don't think so. It's not always apparent.
I mean, that goes under the climate control that you were mentioned earlier. So yeah, that makes sense.
I would say maybe the AC itself, if it's got some smart capabilities, can at least send messages out. You mentioned blinds. I think that's really cool. I'd never been in a house with electrified controllable blinds, but I can see the value in it.
Wait, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate bringing down my blinds.
Yeah. I mean, it's like all this arm motion you don't have to do. So
Yeah, and they break
they break.
and then they're expensive anyway. So
We should put blinds twice, blind one, blind two.
one for each eye. Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna put cameras, even though we're not gonna cover it today, but I just want to make sure that it's in there. And then just to make sure.
Actually, so some Win is asking how would I check if I have enough pet food for the month, and I feel like a camera would be helpful for that, like having a camera to like detect the level of food. So camera is a good one, even if it's just taking pictures and not video.
Yeah, unless you've found a pet food dispenser that has like an associated app with it. Sometimes you do. So
Like
Yeah,
someone
would there
who
be-
sense weight.
yeah, sense weight.
Yeah.
It'd be like a hardware component that has a weight sensor that automatically detects when it's lower a certain threshold. That could potentially be like a smart feeding mechanism.
Or you can make your own. Like that's
Sure.
perfect. Looks like you made your own.
Oh yeah, great. Oh great, pressure sensor.
Let's see. Oh, one other thing, working with the smart home. Surprisingly, or maybe not so surprisingly, there are outlets that are smart. And what's cool about that is now you don't really have to capture the info from the third-party lamp or other device, your lava lamp or whatever it is that you have hooked in. You can just control the outlets. And funnily enough, one of the best ways you can fix things is to turn it off and turn it on again. So that's a great fix. Light switches too.
And door locks, I think, was another comment.
Door locks, yes. I'm gonna put numbers on these because I'm assuming that we're gonna capture more in the future. But I think for now, this is a good amount of stuff. One other thing, fan. I can't leave out fans. I love fans. All right. So the other thing that we have to do is we talk about the fact that maybe some of these devices aren't first party. We have our platform, and we have our devices. We have maybe, AWS Blind 1, AWS Blind 2, AWS Camera, and all of them came bundled with, the certificates that you need to be able to communicate with the broker and with our cloud. But sometimes there's things that are already out there, but they speak a different language, right? They speak a different language. They were supported by a different vendor. And how do you deal with these real world situations where there's there's different languages that need to be standardized so that we can manage it? There's the idea of a broker. And I'm not bringing any AWS stuff into it. We're going to get there. But with a broker, you can do a lot of things on the edge in your house, for instance. So you can translate all these different languages into MQTT, which is a lightweight protocol that you can use to process further down the line. And I'm just going to have, even though all these devices are going to be talking to the broker, I'm just going to simplify things by having these categories of stuff point to the broker. And just know for now that that broker is going to be our linchpin and our secure connection to the cloud in order to get all of that data out. All right. And this is like the timestamp type data, right? And in the cloud, and I probably need a box to represent the cloud. Let's do this. Let's just call it the AWS cloud because it is an AWS channel. You want a sort of service on this end in order to be that first layer of interacting with what's local. And I guess this could be a good time to introduce AWS services. So let's call this a cloud broker, and it has some sort of rules engine so that you can take these messages and pass them off to more advanced services that we have that you may be familiar with in the cloud for like analytics, for recommendations. What other use cases? For like further processing. Like if you got the web app, you may want to have different services doing different things. Any other comments? You can set your own fire system. I once used a smoke sensor and water pumps for that, and it worked fine. Fire system. I think we're pretty advanced, but I don't know if I would personally trust myself to put out fires in my house. But that is very cool.
I'd probably stick with
because most houses don't have it to begin with, right? So
it
can only be a plus, right? Let's just say that, okay, there's some sort of translation that comes here. You consolidate a lot of the events here. And for whatever reason, if you lose connection with the internet, right, you still want control, right? So you can, and then you want to keep the data in sync once that connection is reestablished. And that's store and forward, I guess is the term for it, where you can queue up, spool up a lot of the requests while the connection is disconnected. And then once things are connected again, you can forward those down to those downstream services and continue as planned.
So you still have that local control, right? Because it's at the edge. So, you still have that ability to be able to turn off your lights if the Wi-Fi were to go down. So,
yeah. Although, even though I'm tempted to go down the route of like having your app, we haven't talked about the app yet, but having the app choose between the local broker and the cloud broker to like communicate with, it can make the discussion more complex because then you have to think about like, okay, what if X happens or Y happens in scenario A or scenario B? But just know that if you have the broker set up properly and you deployed the right components there, you should be able to continue operating your devices locally with the local broker. But then we're going to cover this in a later diagram, how we communicate directly to the cloud, right? So why did I say cloud broker and rules engine? Because once you've received the messages from that broker and you guys have done this handshake, now you need to handle different amounts of data. So thinking about scalability, we want to be able to handle streaming data and we want to handle batch data because we want to pull those different cost levers and handle different use cases. So I would say you have streaming ingestion and batch ingestion. All right. And although in real life, you're probably going to have different data stores, I'm just going to represent it in one place. And just think of it, it's like, this is a concept of data stores. It's not like everything's going into one giant bucket. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
We have a question from Boomlickshot. So the broker is just doing pull requests to each device in the home. Is the broker just doing pull requests to each device in the home and storing it in the database?
I think they can send, the devices can send to an endpoint in that you set up in the broker. And it's not storing it in, I guess in the end, everything kind of gets stored in a database. But in this case, it's you're trying to find a way to efficiently get like a large amount of messages into the right place. So in some cases, you want it going to the streaming branch, and other places you might want to batch things. So for example, like let's say you have snapshots of data that you want to periodically send and say like, okay, or you have like a bulk amount of logs that you're pushing in not as frequently. So let's just call it I'll just spell it out. Lower frequency snapshots and say like bulk logs. That go here. And then high frequency, high velocity, let's say high velocity telemetry information going this way. And then they'll land in different data stores. One thing I forgot here is like, not only do you have to ingest streaming data, but typically you need to process it as well. Like maybe you need to fix the formatting a bit, or maybe you want to do some a little bit of aggregation. So, whoops, I'm going to put that here.
We have a follow-up question on that. So is the broker more like a sorter in which it identifies data and determines where it goes?
I don't think it identifies data, but you can you're capturing the data, I guess identifying what protocol it is, and then doing a bit of processing to convert it to a standardized format, and then passing it off to like a topic where other things may be subscribed to it to decide what to do. And what separates streaming and bulk data? Is it some explicit type, or is the broker smart enough to distinguish? So I think that's where the rules engine comes into play, where it's the type of data that you see going to which topic gets pushed out to the right branch, right? So I may have a streaming ingestion service that's subscribed to a topic that's just getting tons of data, and then another one that's also subscribed to a different topic, but it's getting that data at lower velocity. And so like that downstream service is designed to handle that particular type of amount or frequency of data.
So it's based on like the rules defined in the rules engine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just like for example, perspective, like bulk data could be like a daily snapshot usage pattern of your heat, or like weekly usage pattern, and then like a streaming data could be something that's more like monitoring your sensor alarms, or like any door or window status, open or closed.
Exactly.
Like real-time energy usage.
Yeah. I'm going to abstract the rest of these things. So like you might have event-based services. What do I mean? It's just something downstream that may be processing and generating a notification or something that we'll expand on so that it can push an update to your phone and give you a notification. Another is, everybody loves this, ML, machine learning, and a machine learning engine to give you recommendations to save you money on, you should turn off the lights because you leave it on 90% of the time when you're not home. Or like, hey, it's winter time and the temperature of your house has been at 85 degrees all winter. What's going on?
I'm pretty sure what my Alexa is doing right now, by the way, when it keeps turning off the lights. Like, I don't know if you guys can tell, but like it keeps going black. Pretty sure it's like using machine learning.
I see. I mean, over time, it'll just get better, and then you're gonna see those savings, Krishy. Don't worry.
But on the other side of the token, like for people that are living in hotter areas like Florida or Arizona, their house, their smart home appliances will probably turn on the air conditioning at certain times if it's like 110 degrees outside to be able to keep any mold away from the house. So there's another token of be able to make sure that your house is properly cooled when you're away.
Cool. All right, I think we have the skeleton of what we wanted to build. Let me just look at the comments and make sure I'm not missing anything. Then it will all learn the stuff and turn on us. No, it won't. AI is our friend. AI is our friend, everyone. And plus, we're talking about machine learning. So maybe I'll let Krishy explain the difference between AI and ML because she is an ML expert.
I mean, they're used pretty interchangeably these days. AI is supposed to encapsulate, like, it can encapsulate like rules-based learning or like more like lower forms, and machine learning is primarily using like tabular data or like picture data or video to like learn patterns. And then there's deep learning, but there's a lot of stuff. But I would say in terms of learning all this stuff and turning on us, it depends on, how you've sent, like your set up your controls around what data to send and all that stuff. I know that it depends on the smart home device and everything, but if you're configuring your own, you have a lot more control over what data you're sending in the first place and what you're teaching the model, if you even are training a machine learning model. So hopefully this empowers you to create your own smart home, because that's the best way to control your data when it comes to like smart home systems.
Awesome. Right. This is a follow-up to Chris's comment, I believe. Dealing with health concerns, you also have to consider not only mold, but energy needs and integration with power companies. Oh, I see.
Yeah, good
interesting.
Point.
I see. Yeah, so it's not just helping you, but helping everyone. I think that's great.
Yeah, and also if you have an electric vehicle at home as well, there's different rates in which they charge for energy when you charge, right? So like that, to your point, that helps with supply and demand at peak times.
Cool.
Unconditional surrender wants a little bit more detail around streaming. I love the handle. Streaming, ingestion, and batch in terms of data size and data type.
Okay. Yeah. Never surrender, first of all. But I think it between streaming, ingestion, and batch, it does kind of depend. I think the way to look at it is like, what are your services capable of handling, right? So that's kind of why I talked about it in that way, because there's not like a pure number. It's just like there's a low frequency, middle frequency, and then high frequency or high velocity and amount of data. So like maybe as a rule of thumb, think about how much data you'd be transferring per day. And that would dictate which service, and then it can kind of bucket it into streaming or batch. So for example, like 100 gigabytes or over every day coming out of the house, you're gonna need something that's how much data are you going to be transferring? You might think about like a managed streaming service that you need to process. And so we have like Kinesis. Actually, this is a good segue. We should jump into services because we've got 15 minutes left. And I want to make sure that people are aware of that. We're not just talking about these boxes in like generalities, that there are things that we can do, services that we have that can be applied to do the things that we just said we were going to do.
The short answer is it depends, I think,
yeah.
for the data type on what your design requires and your budget and everything.
Yeah. And I think as SAs, we kind of have in the back of our minds which services might work. We don't try to like slap it on, but I think it's always good to have some sort of hypothesis of like, oh, Kinesis makes sense here. Or like, I love Kafka, so I'm going to use managed services Kafka. Or I want a managed service, but I don't like Kafka, so I'll go with like manage Apache Flink, for instance. And let's start putting services and icons on here. I'm pulling from one of our PowerPoint decks and pasting them here. Oh, sorry about that. I know, super advanced. But here we go. So I'm just gonna slowly introduce different services to cover like the different things that we have here, right? So for the local broker, say we have control over what we're building. Greengrass is an AWS service that allows you to, well, first of all, there's core capabilities in the software that you can use to handle the that topic stuff that I was talking about, but you can also deploy different components to do different things. So you can have it like a bridge to keep the connection open between the cloud and your home. You have the ability to deploy components like spooling, which I mentioned, to support that, like store data in disconnected times and then forward it once you've been reconnected. And so when you think about that, think about the broker and things that you're able to do on the edge in your house within that broker. Think about using AWS IoT Greengrass. And we can do a deep dive a bit later, but for now, that's kind of what I wanted to cover here.
Yeah, I really think about it like it lets you like buffer your data locally so that you can have your devices offline and yet still sync to the cloud eventually when you're working with like edge devices or smaller devices. So
yeah. What's also funny about what I love about the IoT services is that when we refer to those actual devices in the fields, we call these like client devices, but then the official name for them, if you've got them registered as a device in IoT Core, is they're just called things. So these are all just things, which I love. I love things. Is that too many arrows? Sorry. Okay. And then the other thing is, okay, what in the cloud? What in the cloud do we have that can serve as that broker in the cloud to field those responses and to have those topics that services can be subscribed to? Our managed service is AWS IoT Core. It does have a lot of capabilities in terms of what I talked about, connecting between on-prem and the cloud. It also said you can have a bunch of rules so that you can determine what is going to be consuming from whatever topics that you have set up.
it does like message routing and device registration.
Yeah.
For you, which is nice.
And I wanted to put some examples of like what might a topic look like. For like any device, you might have metrics kind of going to more of the streaming ingestion side. So like I have a bunch of metrics coming from my device with timestamps and I want to send them somewhere. And eventually I want it to be used for like anomaly detection by a machine learning engine. That could be good. That would be like a good candidate for that type of thing. Another might be, I don't know, what would be like a batch use case? Maybe one of my bulbs just sends like heartbeats, like slow heartbeats. Slow heartbeats. Just letting it know it's alive or something like that.
I think also if you wanted to like maybe send like pictures at different times of the day for certain things and you didn't need it like real time like analyzed or like some response, that could be helpful, like for the pet scooper thing to measure the amount of food. If you were using pictures instead of like weights, you could do a batch ingestion at the end of the day to like make it more efficient.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Cost efficient.
Yep. Batch ingestion. So one of the services that makes sense for this would be Amazon Kinesis Data Firehose. It's not necessarily going to be streaming data, right? So you want to use the right service so you're not accruing costs that you don't want. And so like Amazon Kinesis Data Firehose would be a good option. And like we mentioned earlier, we said it depends on what is streaming, what is batch, but you can typically think about it like high velocity, lower velocity. And if you look at the quotas, it'll become more apparent to you, or like the behavior of these services, which one makes more sense to serve as that backend service. How many devices max can you handle per home? That also depends. So it depends on how much your broker is able to handle, or how much you want your broker to handle, how many of the devices are like third party and first party that you can reasonably control from a central place like your phone, that type of thing.
And also just like general bandwidth as well is a concern.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think on average a house has like 15 to 20 smart home appliances at once. So, but could be a cool experiment to test how many your house can support.
I saw someone just yell Mr. Robot. I'm not sure what that's about, but love the engagement. Data stores. S3 is a pretty good object store. So if you've got unstructured data, it's a good landing place if you want to do processing after where the data initially landed. Definitely seen that. I know we abstracted it into just data store, but just know that in a lot of cases, people have different layers of buckets. They have like the raw data and then like a conformance layer where they're massaging it, and they might have a final consumption bucket. So it's not just that you might only have one data store and that's where things land. There may be stages, and people use them for different things, right? You might have a S3 bucket that you break out to store data that's just for, data scientists to create features. Correct me if I'm wrong, Krishi.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
And then we talked about options for streaming ingestion. And two of the ones that come to mind are managed services. And I do want to talk about like managed services versus rolling your own streaming ingestion. I think the great thing about managed services is that a lot of the heavy lifting is taken off your hands of like, I need to scale up, I need to scale down, or that's a lot of it. Integrating it with services as well. Like for instance, like think about in an enterprise, which is, we're managing this backend platform. We need to be able to integrate with like IAM and control access, identity access management. You need to be able to provide it access to other services. When you use a managed service, that will help you there. Kinesis Data Streams is if you want to use AWS managed service for streaming ingestion. Amazon MSK, when customers are talking to us about streaming ingestion, a lot of them may already have Kafka used, right? So, and they don't necessarily want to move off Kafka because that's where their capabilities are. So that's why they might choose something like Amazon MSK. And then for ingestion, you might do some, processing. Sorry, it's been wrong the whole time. You may have, there's two services here that come to mind that you can think about. So AWS Glue is a serverless ETL service. And it has a lot of capabilities of helping you transform data. And the other one that I was talking about was Amazon managed Apache Flink, which is great. So you might use Amazon Kinesis data streams to stream ingestion, and then you might process the data with Amazon managed Apache Flink. If you decide not to go the Kafka route, right? So there we go. Let's see what else. There is a lot of stuff at the analytics layer. So for example, a common pattern is to like crawl some of the data that's in S3, and maybe you want to do ad hoc dashboarding. You can run some queries on top of that data after you've crawled it. And then you would visualize it with Amazon QuickSight. I think more and more nowadays, we're baking in Gen AI into our services. So you'll find that there's you can ask like natural language questions of QuickSight on crawled data, and it'll generate visualizations for you. And at the analytics layer, there's also actually, this probably falls in the analytics layer because it's not data storage. There's another paradigm that we could probably talk about later, is I want to run queries on, say, like trends that are happening as an enterprise, not as a person. Like how is performance across, North America or this particular region, or what's the most used service, or what's the biggest problem that I have? Like those are the types of things you would ask a data warehouse, like using something like Amazon Redshift. And I know we've only got 4 minutes left. We covered 1 out of the 3 of the topics that we had planned to cover. But do you have any closing thoughts so far?
I think this was great. I hope everyone on the stream today found some value of this. But we're definitely queuing this up for additional future episodes as well. So I know Brian has had additional architecture that he wanted to go through around like device to cloud flow and also like a mobile application. So hopefully everyone on the stream can join us for the next session.
Yeah, and would love to hear the viewers' thoughts on what you would want to learn more about or want us to double click on in the next episode. It is, how many devices? Sorry, I'm reading through the comments. How many devices max can you handle per home? I think we covered that one. It depends. Sorry. Green grass serves better for sure. It's cost effective. It is. How many do you really think people have? I suspect it's higher than 17 or will be. How to account for growth as more and more devices in the home are smart? How many light switches do you have? Right. How many smart light switches do you have? I think that's actually a very good point. So there is a balance between how much we design from the technical point and the functional point. And then there's things that like the business strategy team will kind of guesstimate for the technical teams to build for.
Can you feed
right.
the dog?
I think this is a great comment to end on. Yeah. Oh, my dog. Can you monitor my dog somehow? I mean, more and more I see my friends have they monitor their pets remotely with cameras. And they'll show me their cat sleeping or something like that when we're on a trip, and making sure that they're fed and things like that. So there's definitely options around that. And I think that might be a good thing to talk about next episode. We can combine.
I mean, video streaming would probably this would be a good case for video streaming. So thank you for inspiring a future episode.
Yep. Real life usage. I think it would be great for a next episode. We can probably show a message being produced, getting captured by a broker. Maybe just straight to IoT Core because I don't have a local broker at my disposal right now. And then show how it might ripple down to the different streaming side and the batch side get consumed by different services. And that would be really valuable for people to see. So thanks, app. My home.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. It's been really great having all your thoughts and comments as we design our first smart home.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, smart pillows. That's the next frontier.
Smart collars, smart pillows, any wearable, I think, will probably be the next iteration.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And we'll see you on the next episode of This Month on AWS Consumer Electronics.
See ya.
Bye.